Hey guys, so the month of February has come and it is gone, and it is now time for me to go over all of the books that I read for the month of February. So without further ado, let's get into it. First up, I read Life's Too Short by Abby Jimenez. Now this was a fun one. We have these two neighbors, one who's kind of like wants to seize the day, all over the place vlogger. She's a travel vlogger. She loves to travel, but is kind of at the moment in this book stagnant because she's handed her sister's kid and has to kind of take care of this kid, not of her own volition. Then we have her neighbor who is kind of a workaholic, doesn't really go anywhere, but is like a super nice guy and actually helps her with this kid. So we have this like opposites attract thing. And it's kind of like a really sweet book. I really loved this book because, of course, Abby Jimenez has really great banter. The characters are really sweet. And the MMC in here is swoon worthy, absolutely. I just really loved the growth of the characters. We really fight with, what we want our partners to do for our own selfish reasons. What we think is right and what's actually right for our partners type of thing in that fight. And you kind of question what you would do in that situation. And I love that place that Abby puts you into. So I really enjoyed this book and I laughed. I was on the brink of tears at some points. It was just really good, really fun, bittersweet at moments, but I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 5 stars. Next up, if you guys didn't know, I actually run a book club on Fable, and February's book club pick was Our Vicious Oaths by Annie Davenport. And this book follows a girl who's kind of set up in an arranged marriage to give her family more power, and is also prophesized in a way for her to be in this marriage. But before she gets married, she wants to have one last hurrah with her ladies. In this last hurrah, things kind of set things in motion that kind of put her in a bad position, and things kind of just hit the fan after that. So that's all I can really say on that. And I want to say I wish I loved this book. I really do. The only thing I'd say is that there is so much spice. There's so much spice in this book. I think this book lacks a lot of character development, which I would have loved to see because there's so much potential. There are so many cool elements that I wish we would have delved deeper into. There are a lot of, cool fantasy elements. The magic isn't really explained well. I would have loved to see like the characters that they explain. There's like a creature called like a Kangamato. I really don't know their history or what they are necessarily. They describe them, but I don't really know what they are. There's like a 5th element called like an ether. I still don't know what that is. So there's just so many questions that I have that don't really get answered. And this is a standalone. So I loved it. I love a good fantasy one and done. But then again, with fantasy, you gotta give me a lot in such a little amount of time if you're gonna give me a standalone. So you have to give me something. And there just wasn't. You filled enough space in with spice and not enough with information. Not only that, there was some characters in here that felt a lot like throwaway characters. For instance, there were these flyers that the FMC is a part of. She's like the head of these flyers. And we know these 2 other flyers that are like her besties. And then we don't really get introduced to any other flyers except for one. And she does play a role at the end, but only the role at the end is why I think she's important. But all the other flyers aren't mentioned. And there's this other character who comes up that we meet. It's this kid who wants to be treated as a soldier. He wants to train. as a soldier for the MMC. And he gets mentioned once. They bring him with them, and then he never gets mentioned again. So it's like we get these characters and then we don't really see them until we really need them. So yeah, I didn't really love this book for what it could be. There was so much potential, and it really fell flat for me. So for all of those reasons, I gave it 3 stars. Again, I wish I loved this book. It just didn't hit its mark with me. Next up, I read Sunny Disposition by Deanna Gray. And this one follows like this couple who meet on the internet, and they are going to meet in person. And then the night that they meet in person, something happens. The MMC gets in like a fight, and then he gets amnesia, and they never meet. And then they somehow become roommates, and, you know, things happen from there, and they, you know, secrets happen. He figures it out that who she is, and she doesn't, and he keeps it a secret. So that's the storyline, that's the plot. And yeah, it was cute. I just felt like the characters were too much like their tropes. Like, the trope is grumpy sunshine, but I felt like the author was focused so much on exuding those tropes. Like, the sunshiny characters was so positive, so sunshiny. It was a little exhausting. And the grumpy character was so negative. And there wasn't really any explanation for some of his actions. Like, he was kind of standoffish, but his character was very loyal, which I loved. But if he got in a fight, he just couldn't stop. Like, he had no off point. There was no switch to turn himself off. As soon as he started punching, he couldn't stop punching until he was either removed physically or someone punched his lights out. Like, I didn't understand how that person could be him and also a loving human being. Like, his anger management didn't coincide with his character, and it didn't make sense for his character development, and there wasn't any character development. Like, his characterization didn't make any sense to me. Also, there was like a subplot with the coach that didn't really go anywhere. So yeah, I didn't love it. And then the FMC, she has like this relationship with her with the house she's renting is like her pseudo parents in a way, and like the room she's in is kind of falling apart, and her pseudo parents are kind of like, oh yeah, we'll fix the things that are there. They never show up. I'm like, these are supposed to be like your people, and they're like never there. I'm like, okay, that's cool. So there's just like a lot of things that kind of don't make any sense to me as far as characterization goes. And then the characterization that is happening is just a little too much. But yeah, overall, it was okay. I mean, it was like short and sweet. Yeah, I gave the book 3.5 stars. Give it a go. It was like a hockey romance, because he plays hockey. So, I mean, there was that. So, yeah. Next up, I read the Tether trilogy, which is the Vicious Bonds, the Wicked Ties, and the Lethal Souls books. Now, I enjoyed this series. The first book follows this girl who, she's living a life. She has a good job. Not so great boyfriend. Like, he's good, but he's not great. He's really dependent on her. He needs her. He's kind of controlling, actually. He's definitely needing her to check in with him all of the time. She's kind of like a party planner, and then she has a really great best friend, but all of these things, her life is kind of feeling a little empty. And then she has a missing twin. Her twin has been missing for like a couple of years. But all of this, she's just feeling a little empty. And then we have this guy who we don't really know much of, and he's also feeling a little empty, to the point of a little suicidal ideation. And their worlds kind of collide, and she finds herself in a world that's not her own, and it happens to be this man's world who was having the suicidal ideation. And it's this whole other world, and we find out that they have a bond of sorts, and that's basically the plot line. I don't want to give too much away. It is a fantasy book, and it's a fun take, I will say. This fantasy world has a lot of ups and downs. It's very violent in this fantasy world. There are guns, there are gangs, lots of murder, lots going on there. I did love the fast pace of it all. What I didn't love was, for the series as a whole, is that there's so much going on, which I generally love. I generally love a lot going on because my mind can't wander. Sometimes I need a lot going on so I can just be so enveloped in a story that I can't think of anything else. Because sometimes my mind does wander, I must admit. But for this one, there's so much going on that I think the author gets a little lost in it. I think the first book was really good, and it kept me in it, and I was so intrigued to see what happens next. I think the second book was interesting, but I still had so many questions, and the author didn't do a lot to answer a lot of those questions from the first book, and instead gave me more questions than answers. And then in the third book, we got a lot of closure, but with so many characters being underdeveloped, because there were so many characters being brought in and so many elements being brought in, things felt underdeveloped. So when the closure happened, I didn't feel wholly satisfied with the conclusions that were happening. And I still don't understand some of the elements of magic, and some of the magic that was happening and that was explained didn't coincide well with some of the other things that were happening. So for the first book, I gave that one 5 stars because it absolutely captivated me. The second book, I gave that one 4.5 stars, I believe. No, I gave that one 4 stars. And then I gave the final book 3.5 stars because, again, that one just felt a little unsatisfactory because there were just, again, so many elements. And even in the final book, we were still getting introduced to new characters. Why? Why were we still getting introduced to new characters? It's the final book. We should be getting no new characters. Instead, we should be getting closure. So overall, I did enjoy the book series as a whole. But it did let me down just a tad. Next up, I've read The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. Now, I enjoyed this book so much that I went out and I bought a trophy because this one was just so cute. It follows this woman who is kind of lost in a way. She doesn't really fit in with anything. She's always moving. Every 6 months, she kind of picks up and moves to a different place, but she kind of finds her place in this home. She finds herself tutoring these 3 young witches in magic in this kooky house filled with a bunch of random people who have kind of made a little family of sorts. And in that, she has found family in them as well. And it's just such a cozy, cute little read. And I really love the magic elements in this, and just the found family aspects in this. And I just really love the kooky characters. I found myself laughing, and I just felt so, I don't know, good inside after reading this. It was just so fun, and I just had no issues with this book. I loved it so much. And this one does get pretty good praise, and I probably don't need to toot its horn any more than I've already tooted words, but I really enjoyed this book. If you haven't picked it up already, please do. It's definitely worth the read. Again with the words, it's definitely worth the read. I gave this book 5 stars, obviously, if you haven't figured that out already. Fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. All right, next up, I read All These Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. Now, this one took me by surprise. I didn't know what to expect because I went in blind. So this one follows a sheriff of a interesting southern town with a lot of tragedy in its past. So this sheriff, he picks up a call one day and there is a shooter in a school. And so it is this kid who has shot one of the teachers in one of the classrooms, and then he ends up shooting himself. But before that, he says to look at this teacher's phone, and then they do end up getting the phone of the teacher who has been murdered, and that sets out abundance of things, and they learn many dark things about this teacher and what has transpired in the past with this teacher, with this student, and one other person. So they're on the hunt for this one other person who's been doing terrible things to this town under the residents' noses. So this has been a crazy time for this town, and I was locked in. Now, I did listen to this book. I can imagine this would be very difficult to read physically because there are many characters to try to keep track of, and I am thankful that I did decide to listen to it because the different voices definitely made it easier to keep track of. There are a lot of names, and I did see other reviews where people were like, there's so many characters, and there are a lot of characters, but I found it very thrilling and I really enjoyed the plot points. And I was reading this book at the same time as a different friend, and she was having a hard time reading it physically, but as soon as she started listening to it, she was also locked in. So I would suggest reading this as an audiobook over physically reading it if you're going to give this one a shot. But I absolutely enjoyed this book. Like I said, locked in. I didn't know what to expect from like any corner. I did have an inkling of where it was gonna go, but at the same time, I didn't know. I thought I did, but I didn't. You know that moment when you're like, I'm going to guess the end. I didn't guess the end. I did guess like a couple elements, but in no way or shape or form did I guess the end. But I really, really enjoyed this book. I thought it was an interesting take on religion and race, especially during Black History Month. I thought it was a refreshing take, and it was definitely a fun read. I mean, not fun, but definitely interesting and eye-opening for sure. I would definitely recommend. I gave this book 5 stars, and yeah, definitely go read the audiobook. Definitely do that. Next up, I read Blood Moon by Brittany S. Lewis, and this book was actually so much fun. I, at first, was having a hard time getting into it. I think my brain was so locked into it being very similar to The Vampire Diaries and Twilight, because those are so much a part of my childhood. And so I have so much of like protectiveness over those properties because they are so much a part of me, that I was very hesitant to enjoy this book at first. But once I got into it, I absolutely loved this book. So this book follows this girl who has basically had a rough go a little bit because her mom has disappeared and she doesn't know where her mom is. Her father is the sheriff of her little town, and then she gets this letter of acceptance from this college that she didn't apply for, but she decides to go to because she kind of just needs an escape. So she goes to this college and she meets, you know, a bunch of great guys and people and whatever. But she realizes there's some weird things happening. There's animal attacks happening near the forest and everything. And there's these guys. There's a really great guy who she's met, and he's really receptive. But there's these other guys. This one guy who is really mean to her and wants her to leave. Okay. Similar, but okay. And wants her to leave or she's gonna get hurt type of thing. But that's the basic plot line of the book, and it's fantastic. I did not see the way this was gonna go. I would say by the 70% line, I was like 100% in. Like I said, it took me a while to get into it because of the similarities between Twilight and Vampire Diaries, but once I was in that 70% line, I know that's really deep into the book, but again, I'm stubborn. But once I was in it, I was in it. It took such a freaking turn. I was shooketh. I could not grasp what was going on, and my only problems with this book, in all honesty, was the fact that the FMC lacks common sense at points. She does, and that angers me. I hate a stupid FMC. Now, she's not stupid, but again, she lacks some common sense. She does. And that infuriates me. That infuriates me. And there's also some phrasing issues, not issues, but this is a personal thing. The author phrases a few things that takes me out of the story. It's just some strange things that she does, and it's a stylistic thing. It's just not for me, but it wasn't completely off-putting. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this story, and I am very excited for when the second one comes out, whenever that may be. I gave this book 4.25 stars. Fantastic. Go pick it up. Last, but certainly not least, I listened to the book Harriet Tubman Live in Concert by Bob the Drag Queen. Now, this is not something I normally pick up, but I had a friend suggest this book to me. It's a very quick read. It's a 4-hour audiobook, and with her recommendation, I picked it up. It's more like a fictional book, I wouldn't even say historical nonfiction, no, historical fiction. It's like fiction with historical magical realism. I don't know, but it follows Bob the Drag Queen, and he is, or she, I should say, is meeting up with Harriet Tubman, and she wants to tell her story through music, and Bob the Drag Queen is going to help her do that, and that's basically it. That's the storyline of the book, and it was a quick read. My favorite part, honestly, of the book is the fact that we get a couple of tracks of music at the very end. That was my favorite part. And I actually looked up those tracks on Spotify. They are available, and I love it. I actually really love it. The book itself was just okay. I mean, it was fine. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it either. I found some portions to be interesting and I would say eye-opening, but not really eye-opening, because I knew of some of the horrifics of slavery. Me as a Black person would know of some of those things. History, you know. So I do know of some of those things, but knowing some of the specifics and their correlation to religion and how they use it against them, it was kind of interesting to see it in that light. So that was interesting. And yeah, overall, I gave the book a 4-star rating. Would recommend if you have 4 hours to kill. And it was, like I said, it was definitely an interesting read. And you get the music at the end, so there's that. But that's it, guys. Those were all of the books that I read for the month of February. It wasn't a great reading month for me. I had a lot going on. Unfortunately, I had a family member pass away, so I wasn't really in the reading mood. So, yeah, so how many books did I read for the month of February? Let's get into the stats. So stats, I read 6 e-reader books and I read 4 audiobooks. And that brings us to a total of 10 books. Not my best reading month, as you can tell. And hopefully it'll be my worst reading month for the year. And we're only going up from here, hopefully. My favorite book for the month of February is got to be The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. It really just made me feel warm and fuzzy inside. And for the month of February where I was feeling really down, it definitely helped me through those times. So really appreciate that. And for my most anticipated read for the month of March, I'd say is The Quiet Ones by Penelope Douglas. I have actually been waiting years for this book to release, so I'm really, really, really excited for this book to actually be finally here. So I'm really excited to dive into that one. And I've actually got the next book for the month of March for our book club pick all set up. If you guys want to join us, it'll be Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. You guys can go ahead and head on over to my Fable and join the club. I will also put the link in the description below if you guys want to check out the book club. Feel free to join. I know we would love to have you over there. And yeah, guys, so let me know what your favorite book of your reading month was. And that's it, guys. Until next time, read on, my bookish friends.